Hey guys, welcome back, it's Meg. Today we are going to be talking about Chi and how to utilize it in a Mythic Plus setting. So Chi is the alternate to Yu'lon, and it is the standard choice for Mythic Plus. This is your primary healing cooldown, and with proper setup, Chi will give you great coverage for group-wide damage, as well as save you a significant amount of mana. Chi doesn't increase healing or damage done, but it does give you throughput, and the tooltip itself isn't very intuitive. There's a lot to this ability, so we are going to be breaking it down. It does require a little bit of mana to trigger the ability, as well as a little bit to maintain it, but you can heal for quite a bit while sub 10% mana as long as you have Chi up and running. We're going to go through how to use them in the ideal way, however, given that Mythic Plus is constantly changing and a bit unpredictable at times, it's likely that you're not going to have time to do perfect prep every time, but it is a flexible cooldown. It can be used a few different ways to be effective without the perfect prep. We're also going to be talking about the difference between a Jade Bond Chi rotation and a Gift of the Celestials Chi rotation. Before we go over the setup or the rotation, I want to address where the healing actually comes from. So we have instances of player healing, we have instances of Chi healing, and then there's also secondary effects that we are going to be covering. These aren't all of the healing effects that you would see on logs or on details, but these are the major ones. Player healing is going to be coming from Ancient Teachings, which is triggered before Chi is activated. Same for Renewing Mist. Enveloping Mist is going to be the trigger for Chi, which we will cover under that section. The Essence Font Hot comes from Feline Stomp, which also triggers Ancient Teachings. And then we also have access to Awakened Feline, which is going to be helping with some passive healing while we're doing damage. We also have our Mastery, which is Gusts of Mist, and that is triggered whenever we use Renewing Mist, Enveloping Mist, or Vivify. For the Chi healing, every time we cast Enveloping Mist, he will cast Enveloping Breath. Chi will also use a Gust of Mist, which is Mastery based when you use Blackout Kick, Rising Sun Kick, or Spinning Crane Kick. In addition to the Chi healing, he also will provide you with some additional effects, the main one being the anti-root and anti-snare. While the bird is active, it's basically like a permanent freedom. You cannot be slowed, you cannot be rooted. This is very, very helpful in a lot of these dungeons because there is a lot of slows, snares, and roots, and a lot of the time you can completely negate it with Chi because you're going to be using your cooldown there anyway. In some situations, it can also prevent you from taking damage from these abilities. Also, during Chi, when you cast Blackout Kick, Rising Sun Kick, or Spinning Crane Kick, you will also gain a stack of Invoke Chi the Red Crane. Usually I will shorten this to Crane Stacks or Bird Stacks, and what these do is reduce the cast time and the cost of your Enveloping Mist by 33%, stacks up to 3 times, so you can get 100% reduction on the cast time and the cost of Enveloping Mist. Given that the Enveloping Mist that the player casts is what triggers the Enveloping Breath from Chi, which is a large portion of the throughput, this is where the mana saving comes in, as well as where all of the additional healing you get out of the actual cooldown. Basically what's happening is that you have all of these minor healing events like Player Hots, you have Awakened Feline, you've got the Enveloping Breath from Chi. All of that works as maintenance healing while you build and spend stacks of Blackout Kick to get the big gust of healing from Chi. Currently, Awakened Feline, you can build stacks very quickly, and it does bring a lot of power to Chi. You can see here we are fighting in my Feline. I have Renewing Mist on the whole party, and then the Enveloping Breath goes out there as I'm spending my stacks, and you can also see people's health jump up as I'm spending my stacks of Blackout Kick. I am using Gift of the Celestials, which means that my Chi is a bit shorter, but it is also a 1-minute cooldown as opposed to a 3-minute. Jade Bond is also a good pick, but I've personally been preferring Gift lately, but we will be going over the rotation for each of them. So before actually using Chi, we do have a bit of setup to do both for Jade Bond Bird and Gift of the Celestials Bird. We're going to want out both charges of Renewing Mist on cooldown. We want 3 stacks of Teachings of the Monastery, which is our Blackout Kicks. Feline Stomp should be active where the mobs are going to be and where you'll be fighting, and you want to make sure that Ancient Teachings is active. If you can't hit all of your allies with Feline Stomp for the Essence Font Hot, you can also use Essence Font itself, but you are going to want Feline down anyway for the cleave through Awakened Feline. That being said, that is only in Mythic Plus situations because you will use Essence Font during your rotation for Jade Bond and Raid builds, and a lot of the times in Mythic Plus you're not going to be getting a perfect setup, but in Raid it is easier to accomplish. So during Chi, this is what we are going to be looking at for the Jade Bond build. Jade Bond was a conduit that has made it into a talent. I know that this tooltip says that it is for Yu'lon, but it will change to whichever Celestial you're currently using. In the case of Chi, it will increase the Gust of Mist healing by 40% rather than the Soothing Breath that Yu'lon has access to. There is a CDR component to this as well. You can see on Jade Bond, the abilities that activate Gust of Mist reduce the cooldown of Chi-Ji or Yu'lon by 0.3 seconds. This also does interact with Awakened Phalanx and the Blackout Cleave because each of those will trigger a Gust of Mist. It gives us a lot of options in terms of CDR here, and it actually does get the cooldown very close to Gift. It is much easier, as I mentioned earlier, to get a perfect setup for Chi-Ji in Raid. It is also easier to stick to a perfect rotation in Raid. But this is going to be the optimal rotation. This is what's going to give you the highest amount of HPS, but if you are using Jade Bond and keys, then you might not be able to get this every time, which is fine. The main reason you are seeing Thunder Focus Tea used with Essence Font in the middle of that rotation is because with Secret Infusion, which we use in Mythic Plus and in Raid, we gain a haste benefit from Essence Font. We take Essence Font over Renewing Mist mainly because we are going to be re-triggering our Ancient Teachings that has fallen off about halfway through this rotation because Chi-Ji is a 24-second totem. For Gift of the Celestials, we have a reduced cooldown on the ability, just baseline, but we do also only get half of the duration that we normally get. This means that we have a much more simple rotation because it is only half the duration of Jade Bond or of normal Bird. This means also that we will not have to refresh Ancient Teachings in the middle of our rotation, so you can use Ancient Teachings right before you pop Chi-Ji, and then you can just refresh it when Bird is over because the duration on Ancient Teachings is 14 seconds and the duration on Gift of the Celestial Chi-Ji is 12. I know that that was a lot of information all at once. There is a bunch of different interactions between all of the talents and things that give cooldowns and things that cleave, and there is just kind of a lot to digest with this video. So if you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free to reach out, hit me up on Twitch, Twitter, or Discord, or you can ask in the comments below. But I do hope that it was helpful. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.